Joining us now in the studio to take a closer look at all the recent activity going on at the United Nations is former Israeli ambassador to multiple countries, Ambassador Yosef Livne, and Ambassador Danny Ayalon, who is the former Israeli ambassador to the United States. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about this vote. How should Israel view the 128 nation gang up on Israel, per se, at the UN General Assembly last week?
Well, there's nothing new. You know, we have been used to this Arab automatic majority ganging up on us. All you can look at is Ambassador Haley, who is appalled by this discrimination, by the injustice, by the indecency. So for us, it's a game which we cannot win.
Were there any countries that stood out for having chosen to support the resolution, and any countries that stood out for having chosen not to support the solution in your minds?
Well, I think that what we always, we can fight is the difference, is the score. You know, if we have seen resolutions of 180 against 2, U.S. and Israel in different resolutions, here we see 128 against, 9 and 35 abstentions, and a few who did not even show up. So, but I attribute this to the pressure, to the American pressure. So instead of seeing 150 against us, we saw 128. If this is it's not a qualitative change, it's a little bit quantitative and not much beyond that.
I think that we should look at the positive side. Countries like Mexico, and I remember I was ambassador to Mexico, and I don't remember Mexico voting favorably over the years. And here, at this instance, on something which is really important, they chose to abstain. Argentina chose to abstain. And of course, you have countries like Guatemala, which voted against the draft resolution.
Guatemala obviously has just said that they're even going to be moving their embassy to Jerusalem.
Yes. So I think on the whole, the who voted what makes a difference.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk about, the fact that Israel is now going to leave UNESCO, as it had promised earlier this year, following the United States as well. What is the significance and the possible consequences of doing so?
Well, it's just going to show that Israel is not going to be the, the one who is, the punching bag. And from UNESCO, we have not actually received not only any dignity but a real injustice, where they call Jerusalem as a Palestinian state, where they called Hebron and the Patriarch's Cave as Palestinian, and all those things. So for us, it's just a matter of showing that there is a consequence. And I believe it was easier for us to do it following the American decision to leave.
Well, and the U.S. has also made another decision as well, right, which is to cut $285 million from the UN core budget contributions, which is a pretty significant number. This is money that's going to be affecting the UN peacekeeping budget as well. Is this childish behavior, or is this a wise move?
No, I think the Americans have taken similar steps in the past. I would like to remind that President Reagan chose to leave UNESCO when the U.S. felt that UNESCO was mistreating Israel. And they decided to leave. And back then, they told us, don't follow us, because we can always come back. You can't be sure they'll let you back.
Right.
And they left and came back a few years later. So I don't think it's childish. And you don't have many sanctions, especially a superpower like the United States or any other superpower. But the United States, which foots the bill on a yearly basis, and their contribution to the budget of the United Nations is so huge that if they decide that they're going to curtail that contribution, it'll make a difference. It is not a childish act by any means.
Well, but what does that mean for the United States and its international standing as well? It's a very controversial move.
It means that the United States is starting to just throw its weight around and use its leverage. So far, it has been receiving and on the receiving side, and now they're going to show, and this is actually one of the platforms on which President Trump was running, you know, making America great again. And here I can tell you that also he is really very comfortable with that because his base is very supportive of this. You have to remember.
Well, yeah,
Natasha,
I mean, he doesn't seem to be scared about this move whatsoever. And
no, but also he is, I think he's walking here on a very firm ground because the sentiment vis-a-vis the United Nations in the United States is very, very negative.
Yeah.
The sovereignty issue, so in that case, I think he will have a lot of support, even from Democrats.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, ambassadors. And we are going to have to wait and see what 2018 looks like for the United Nations without as much American and Israeli support.